Well, hey, Adam, I forgot you were here. Startled me a little. That's all right. It's less than a minute till top of the hour, so we'll just go ahead and get started here in a moment. You can be turning to number 537. It's good to have everyone here and all the little ones. Last week we didn't get to do Genesis because of singing. Of course, this time we'll have an extra week before the singing, and that'll be our last one of the year. Thought this was a good song for our study on Genesis because they're traveling through that land. They had just come into Egypt where they were strangers in that land. And I thought this, and of course we're not going to look at Genesis till the second half. Oh, we got David and Alice, and Sherry said we saw the crab trees there, Ruby. Adam, would you go ahead? Would you lock that door, please? Thank you. Number 537. Here we are, but straying pilgrims here. The path is often dim, but to cheer us on our journey still, we sing this wayside hymn. Yonder over the rolling river, where the shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed Giver gladdens all our longing eyes. Here our feet are often weary on the hills that throng our way. Here the tempest darkly gathers, but our hearts within us say, yonder over the rolling river, where the shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed Giver gladdens all our longing eyes. Here our souls are often fearful of the pilgrim's lurking foe, but the Lord is our defense, and He tells us we may know. Yonder over the rolling river, where the shining mansions rise, soon will be our home forever, and the smile of the blessed Giver gladdens our longing eyes. All right, let's have our classes. All right. Look at her rosy cheeks, Ruby. All right, we're on Lamentations 3, beginning in verse 45. Uh-oh, lost her shoe going. I split this chapter into 3 equal parts since it was 66 verses. We just went 22 verses and 44. Now today we'll finish it. And then only 2 more chapters. And we added Stuart and Andrew to our listeners. Certainly good to have everyone. As you, if you've been in this class, have seen, Lamentations is a book of laments and just mournings for all the things brought upon Israel because of their sins. And as I was reading this earlier, we're going to find there's one word here in English. It's the only time it's ever used in the Bible. And we'll get to that in just a moment. I'll give you a hint and you'll know. What might you call our space between our morning service and this service? What's that? Intermission. It's used in this chapter, the only time ever. Let's begin with verse 45 and we'll finish this chapter today. Thou hast made us as the offscouring and refuse in the midst of the people. just so much had been done against Israel because of their sins that the writer here says they have been made offscouring and refuse. Honestly, that's like garbage and just waste. If I look up refuse here, I can grab the corner there. It literally says trash. That's the only time this Hebrew word is used in the Bible. It's trash or garbage. And you have made us like that. And sometimes whenever things just get so far gone that, it could be an article of clothing, just something gets so worn out it's not even useful anymore. You end up throwing it in the garbage. It is interesting, just a little side note, we live in such a society that we have so much that we have garbage pickup that, it usually works out about a tote full each week. Or for some people more or less, but that's what he's talking about. You've made us like garbage, and it literally, one of the words is trash for this word. Offscouring, as a matter of fact, that would be probably more like with cooking, whenever you had to scour and scrape a pan. It just says offscouring is all that it is. With, maybe a Brillo pad. Or I remember that Mom used to have this, I don't know, some kind of plastic. It's almost like a little wedge, or something you'd scrape. And to really clean off where things had been cooked onto the pan. And you've made us the offscouring and refuse in the midst of thy people. They were just the lowest of low, is because of their sins. All our enemies have opened their mouths against us. So the enemies were speaking against them, saying things. Fear and a snare is come upon us. Desolation and destruction. So just this verse alone, 4 things have come upon them because of their sin. Number 1 is fear. And the Greek word here is phobos, which is a phobia. That's to be scared. Hydrophobia is the fear of water. We have fear of heights. We have fear of other things. Some type of phobia. A lot are physical. Some are mental. And fears come upon us. None of us want to be scared of anything. You might get a doctor's report and they say we won't get the results back for a week. There can be fear during that time. You can be alone in the house and hear a sound. Other day, Ruby and I were in the house. It wasn't really frightening. It might have been at night if we'd been one of us alone, but we heard a big toot, 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 or something in the house. And Ruby said, "What was that?" I said, "I don't know." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Did you have a bottle upside down?" I said, "I did," and it was. Not to waste soap whenever one gets empty. I put it on top of the other, let gravity do it. It had drained every bit of it. For some reason, it got a little off balance and fell and really made a sound. And you have these sudden fears. And things come. Other day, Jerry actually, he made me gasp. I don't know if Jerry's listening or not, but I'd come over to Munfordville with him, and I'd look down probably at my phone, and suddenly he had to stop pretty quick. I reached over, I didn't know what was in the road, a cow, giraffe, whatever. I didn't really think a giraffe. It was a cutout place in the road, and he had to stop pretty quick not to hit it hard. And so that's sudden fear. And we know what fear is, and we don't like fear. Fear can save us, but fear is also something that, can make us uncomfortable. Fear and a snare is upon us. A snare is a trap. And he said it has come upon us. So the fear was brought upon them, and a snare as well. A trap because of their sins. Desolation and destruction. Desolation is just, I'll go ahead and look it up, what this is here. It's just ruin. It's come to an end. Desolation had upon them, and destruction. So 4 things in this chapter had come upon them because of their sins. And we'll finish this chapter today, and then we'll have 4 and 5 in Lamentations. And then we'll see what book we're going to do. And we'll do one, of course, that's not as common studied. We're going to just look at something, because I don't know when I last ever did look at Lamentations. Obviously in class, or we've read through it, but still. So 4 things had come upon them because of their sin. Fear and a snare, it says a pit here. desolation and destruction. None of these are things we want, but had come upon them. Mine eye runneth down with rivers of water for the destruction of the daughter of my people. Well, what's that mean he's doing? If your eyes are running down rivers of water. Yeah, crying, tears, weeping. And it wasn't just, a little bit. He says, my eyes overflow with rivers of water. If I look up, Jeremiah is known because of writing. That's why people think he may have wrote this book as the weeping prophet. If that's all I put, it'll probably come up with Jeremiah. He's known for this title due to his deep sorrow and lament over the destruction of Jerusalem and the sins of his people. And so it doesn't say that Jeremiah wrote this, but it's probably a pretty good guess. But whoever was writing it, they had great sorrow for the destruction. Things often move us to tears. We need to be where that we're hurt and tears shed for people just running headlong into sin. But he said, mine eye runneth down with rivers of water for the destruction. And destruction's mentioned 2 verses in a row. I don't think I looked up. We know what destruction means, but I was going to look up what this word means. A crushing, a breach, a crash is just a breaking of a dream, just things being totally brought to ruin because of their sin. So mine eye runneth down with rivers of water for the destruction of the daughter of my people. I think it's fitting that he mentions daughter because it obviously refers to a lady or girl, and maybe more tender and delicate, and like someone's daughter being destroyed. The daughter of my people, which would be generally considered maybe more attractive than the male counterpart and something more delicate and tender. And so Jerusalem was, or Israel I meant to say, like a woman to the Lord, and the church is as well. The church and Israel are always mentioned in the feminine because they are the bride of the Lord of Christ. Mine eye trickleth down and ceaseth not without intermission. And that's what I had mentioned. That's the only time the word intermission is used, certainly in the King James Version of the Bible. I'll just go where I can do a quick search here. But intermission, this is it. Lamentation 3:49. And if I look up what this word means of intermission, there's no stopping. And we know what an intermission is. It's a break between. We take a break between our morning service and our noon one here. It's intermission. At, a ball game, usually the time between the first half and second half of a game is called an intermission. But his tears ceased not without any intermission, or the New King James says interruption. There was constant shedding of tears and sorrow for the people of God, till the Lord looked down and behold from heaven. So now we see some hope beginning to come in this chapter. He's going to be having these tears pour down until the Lord looks down and beholds from heaven. Of course he always knows, but talks about really taking action for the people of God. Mine eye affecteth mine heart because of all the daughters of the city. The things that he was saying, mine eyes bring suffering to my soul because of all the daughters of my city. Whenever we don't see certain things, it's hard to be moved by them. You can see someone in a city that's homeless or someone suffering. I tell you, it's sad to go into a nursing home and see people sitting around. I know when she was never in the nursing home, but she had rehab at the nursing home in Horse Cave. They had a wing there that was, Sandy, what's the word I'm looking for? You'd go for therapy, wasn't it? Rehab, that was it, thank you, Sandy. And she went in for a couple of weeks of rehab at one of the wings of the nursing home. I'd say this, they were really nice there, of course, but they had a really nice room for Mom, 2 beds. She was the only one there, and they told me, said, if you want to stay here and just sleep overnight, you can. And so they offered to stay. I did not, but I went and stayed a lot with Mom, and sometimes, and this isn't a pat on the back, but I'd stay many hours. And I would take a laptop and do some things. And just to be there with her. I enjoyed that. And Mom enjoyed the visit too. One of the guys, when she was at rehab in Horse Cave, came in and said, "I saw you brought your laptop and are working." I brought the laptop. That's all. Chris knows what I'm talking about. And it's been a good time there. And so, but my whole point, when I went in, I remember specifically at Horse Cave, going into the nursing home. And people, these people obviously weren't in their right mind. And they would say to me, "Can you take me home?" That really hurts you when they say that to you. I don't even know them. I'd never seen them before. And before I saw them, it didn't bother me. But for them to cry out, "Can you take me home?" That's really sad. And other things, just seeing the pain and suffering and people hollering out and want to go home or looking for their husband or wife or their daughter, it bothers you to see those things. And it might be a good thing to see them, or we could never be empathetic toward them. But we need to be that way with seeing people in sin, that we need to see and feel sorrow, because that's even worse, seeing people just living their lives in sin and heading toward eternal destruction and being lost, than it is just simply someone in a nursing home crying out to go home. And they may be in a lost state or not. I don't know, but I know the world mostly is. "Mine eye affecteth mine heart. What I see bothers me." It makes you sad. He said, "Why? Because of all the daughters of my city." Certainly the men were as well, but I think you would expect maybe the daughters a little bit more a tender look toward them. A daughter or girl, a young woman is this. The Greek word is bath, the Hebrew word for daughter. They had boys and girls just like we do. As a matter of fact, this is the only time what I'm about to read is mentioned in the Bible. I know when I was growing up that I would get up early in the morning, and we had a lot of kids in Hardyville. We would ride bikes up and down the road. You live in a good place when you can have a basketball goal in the road. That's your court, and have a basket with one mom's backyard. But being a child, I was, in elementary school, from sun up literally to way after sundown. You know what we do all day long in the street? Play. And that's right, play in the streets. And that's mentioned in the Bible. And Zechariah 8:5, "And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof." I think about that verse a lot. Wonder what they did. Perhaps, throw something. I know we played with simple things. We played early on till we had better things, very rudimentary form of baseball. You know what our bat and ball was? A stick and a rock. That's it. A stick and a rock, but that was fun. And they had that. They would do things, I'm sure they threw and would do things like that. As a matter of fact, the word ball is mentioned in the Bible. "He shall violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country." So since they had balls then, and they played in the street, I can imagine that being done. Probably not a really super refined sphere the way a basketball commercially day might be, but I can see them playing with a pomegranate or something, or a piece of old hardened fruit, or anything like that. And my whole point is the boys and girls played together. You saw that verse. He talks about he was sad because of the daughters of my city. And it may be a metaphor just referring to them all, because the feminine here probably evokes a more tender. You hate to see, a girl or a woman treated poorly. You don't want men to either, but usually, unfortunately, if there's a household where there's abuse, it's usually the woman that gets the brunt of the abuse, unfortunately. And so that may be part of it here. The daughters, who were generally, girls generally are weaker than men, just simply because of our makeup. And that's probably a lot of it here, the weaker part of their society. The daughters. What he saw was making tears come to his eye. "Mine enemies chase me sore like a bird without cause." It says mine enemies without cause hunted me down like a bird. He was just like an animal that was being hunted. I tell you what, we do have quite a few cats at home, and I tell you, if a bird lands close to them, you can see them just lock on. How can a cat catch a bird? I couldn't catch a bird if I had to, but a cat makes a lot of noise and moves, but they don't when they're doing that. They're so stealthy. They can just sit there patiently, and the bird gets a little too close. And the other day, I saw blue jay feathers all over the porch. I knew that one had gotten too close. And it wasn't me or Ruby that got the blue jay. I guess I'm sure it was one of the cats. And he was being chased sore like a bird without cause. Just couldn't get away. They have cut off my life in the dungeon and cast a stone upon me. Chris, we've talked about that. We talked about a sepulcher or a crypt the other day, a dungeon. These are things that are deep and dark and not well lit. You don't want to be in a dungeon. Dungeons like in a castle. If I just looked up the word dungeon, I don't know exactly what it's going to show, but look up images. There you go. What is that, Chris? Oh, my God. Yeah. But look at these dungeons. That's not a place you want to be. Dark and deep and dank, no sunlight coming in. Look at that guy on the wall. Not much guy left, is there? That's not a place that you want to be. And that's what he's talking about here. They've cut off my life in the dungeon. That's actually a pretty good picture. That one was. He not only was in the dungeon, but they'd cut off his life. He died in the dungeon. That's how the people were against him. And cast a stone upon me. Threw stones at me. They silenced my life in the pit and threw stones at me. Can you imagine being in a pit or dungeon, they just casting rocks at you until you died? That's how that he felt for the sins of the people. Waters flowed over my head. Then I said, I am cut off. That represents drowning. I'm sure, probably all of us have a little bit of claustrophobia. We don't like to be in a closed place. But I can't imagine being in a place, a dungeon maybe, and they start filling it with water. Well, panic would set in. And that's what was happening to him. All the sins of the people and the things happening, they were overflowing his head. Then I said, I'm cut off. He was going to die. I called upon thy name, O Lord, out of the low dungeon. That actually reminds me a little bit of the second chapter of Jonah after the great fish swallowed him. He said, I cried unto thee from the belly of what? Does anyone remember what he said? Hell. I cried by reason of mine affliction. He was inside the great fish, and he heard me out of the belly of hell, cried I, and thou heardest my voice. And so, no matter how bad things become, being chased in a dungeon, stones cast upon you, water's about to cover you, call upon the Lord. Matter of fact, Jeremiah 33:3 says, call unto me and I will what? Answer. Ruby and I were talking yesterday. I'm not as attached as you might think to my cell phone. We usually go outside here in the warm weather. We've been going outside, sit for a couple hours. I didn't have my phone. And I commented about if anyone called. She said, well, when they were growing up, if you were outside and there's a phone in the house and you didn't hear it ring, you know what you did? Didn't answer. You just didn't even know. No caller ID, no way to know if anyone called. You just answered to it. But the Lord, he said, call to me and I will answer. I called upon thy name, O Lord, out of the low dungeon, out of the lowest dungeon. So the lowest point he could get, he called upon the Lord. But here's hope. Thou hast heard my voice. Hide not thine ear at my breathing, at my cry. It's indicate, or from saying here, breathing doesn't make a lot of sound. It's something we do constantly. I can't hear any of you breathing. You hopefully don't hear me either, especially over the mic here. But he said, hide not thine ear at my breathing. Not just calling out to the Lord or crying out or praying, but probably one of the lowest sounds you make on a regular basis, just your breathing. Hear it at my cry. And I know those of you who have reared children, sometimes you'll listen close and you probably took comfort if you can hear them doing what? Make sure they're breathing. I had to admit, Ruby's gone such deep sleep sometime. I checked. Ruby, are you breathing? She doesn't answer, so I look for signs of breath, some movement, of the diaphragm area. And listen to me even breathing. That's a great comfort to think the Lord's so close to us that he hears us breathing at my cry. So hide not the ear of my breathing, so a soft sound, a loud sound. It doesn't matter how we cry out unto the Lord, just a breath or crying out. Thou drewest near in the day that I called upon thee. Thou says, fear not. You know, I really do like that. Don't be afraid. And Jesus said that when he walked on the water. Fear not, it is I. And you drew near the day I called upon thee. Thou saidst, fear not. I like that. No reason to be afraid. O Lord, thou hast pleaded the causes of my soul. Thou hast redeemed my life. So you see there's hope coming back in this chapter. We've got to press on to finish the chapter. O Lord, thou hast seen my wrong. Judge my cause, how I am wronged. Of course, if Jeremiah did wrote this, he was thrown into a pit. And Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian's the one that got him out. Judge thou my cause. Thou hast seen all their vengeance and all their imaginations against me. This almost seems like a switch to a personal talk as opposed to the nation. The nation had sinned. Jeremiah's preaching to them. They treat Jeremiah terribly. They put him in stocks. They put him in a dungeon where there's mire and no water. And just mire in it. And Ebed-Melech said he's likely to die. They really were hard on Jeremiah. As a matter of fact, Jeremiah was going to have, he was a child when the Lord asked him to preach. But as he was going a little older, some of this very natural to do were all the result of, even though, like Reuben, I did not have. But what did the Lord tell Jeremiah not to do in this place? Don't have children. He told him. Because things were really rough. I think he told him not to marry or have children in this place. I'm trying to think exactly how it's worded with Jeremiah when he was told not to. It wasn't that it was a sin to do. He was telling him not to do this because, the hard things that were coming. I don't see the exact verse that I'm looking for. Have not sons or daughters in this place. Was that it? Give me just a moment. He told him not to marry, Jeremiah 16:2. Thou shalt not take a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place. Why? For thus saith the Lord concerning the sons, concerning the daughters that are born in this place. It talks about they'll die of grievous death. So he really saved Jeremiah a lot of trouble. He said, don't marry, and don't have any sons and daughters in this place. Thou hast seen all their vengeance and their imaginations against me. We are out of time, but thou hast heard, but the chapter in Genesis is short today. Thou hast heard their reproach, O Lord, and all their imaginations against me. But I wonder, I don't know if Jeremiah ever recorded about him having children, but he was told thee to buy land. I don't see it right here. And seal it at the hand of Hanamoth, was it? Give me just a minute. I won't get too far off here. I'd have to look later, but I think he was told to buy land in the place. Thou hast heard their reproach, O Lord, and all their imaginations against me. Just 5 more verses. The lips of those that rose up against me and their device against me all the day. So people were speaking against him. Behold, they're setting down and they're rising up. I am their music. There's one verse I want to mention. This is the only time this word for music is used in the Bible. It is a negative term. It's a mocking song. And you know how children have mocking songs. Nanny, nanny, whatever. To mock someone, to make fun of them. That's what they were doing, Jeremiah, or whoever wrote this. Behold, they're setting down, they're rising up. I am their music. They make up mean songs about me. Unkind. Render unto them a recompense, O Lord, according to the work of their hands. And that would be done. 2 more verses. Give them sorrow of heart, thy curse unto them. He said, give them your curse. Jeremiah didn't mince words. He's the only one in the Bible. He was so put out with the people, he said, destroy them with what? Double destruction. I like that phrase, the alliteration there. Persecute and destroy them in anger from under the heavens of the Lord. That's some pretty powerful language, and the Lord was going to. All right, any comments as I knock on the door here? But real quick, I'm going to look. But Jeremiah was told to buy a field, and What's that?
I said Lamentations, they believe this was wrote during, like whenever, that woman was selling her children and eating them and stuff like that.
Yes, probably right about that time. That's a horrible thing they got to.
Absolutely. I just wonder when the context for all that.
It was because Jerusalem was, that about the woman. It may have been right before the captivity was all happening. They're close. They were really falling because of their sins. They had no food, and they were having to literally eat their children.
And this is during the time of Jeremiah as well?
Yes. Jeremiah and Ezekiel, Jeremiah was a little after that about the children, but Jeremiah and Ezekiel lived at the same time, but one was in Babylon, Jeremiah was in Jerusalem. He actually was given the choice by the king, and he stayed here to preach. But they were so rough on him, but I think the famine where they'd eaten the children had let up by the time Jeremiah came along, because you remember they poured out stuff, and they found an entire army that had been killed, and they just took their stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but the bad things that happened was because of sin. I'm glad you remember those things, Chris. But I was going to say, Hanamel, my uncle's son, so he did buy a field. I'm trying to think. I don't recall Jeremiah having children or not. He was actually told not to in this place, and so. But just in contrast, God later instructs those in exile in Babylon to marry and have children. He told them to build gardens. I'll say this, Chris, it makes you think. They were in captivity in Babylon, wanting to go home. The Lord tells them, y'all need to be planting gardens. What was he telling them? You're going to be here a while. Yeah. Make your gardens in this place. Let me check. All right, just so we'll catch up. Those who had gone from Jerusalem into Babylon, this is in Jeremiah. He told him, now they were in captivity, no doubt wanting to come home. He told them, build houses, dwell in them, plant gardens, eat the fruit, marry, have sons and daughters. Basically, he was saying, you're not going to be going back home. You might as well settle here. And so that's a very serious thing for them. Turn, if you will, to number 860. These are some really good chapters. They all are, but we're learning some things we haven't read before or in a long time. Number 860. And this is a fitting song for us to sing. We talk about them going away into Babylon and the captivity here. Of course, Jeremiah was in Jerusalem. But they were in a place they didn't want to be. But he said, you might as well get used to it. You're going to be here. Build houses, plant gardens, eat of them, marry. As a matter of fact, of course, Jeremiah was told, don't marry and have children. But he was saving him a lot of sorrow because of the grievous deaths the children are going to die. But we have a habitation. It doesn't have to be spiritual Babylon in captivity. It can be with the Lord. Let's sing all of number 860, and then we'll look at Genesis 48. I think it's only 22 verses. Let me check. It's a fairly short chapter. 22, yeah. All right, 860. There is a habitation built by the living God for all of every nation who seek that grand abode. O Zion, Zion, I long thy gates to see. O Zion, Zion, shall I dwell in thee. a city with foundation firm as the eternal throne. No wars nor desolation shall ever move a stone. O Zion, Zion, I long the gates to see. O Zion, Zion, when shall I dwell in thee? No night is there, no sorrow, no death, and no decay, no yesterday, no morrow, but one eternal day. O Zion, Zion, I long the gates to see. O Zion, Zion, when shall I dwell in thee? Within its pearly portal, angelic armies sing, with glorified immortal, the praises of its King. O Zion, Zion, I long the gaze to see. O Zion, Zion, when shall I dwell in thee? Okay, if you will, let's see. Turn to Genesis 48. I don't have it up yet, but won't take but a moment. All right, 22 verses in this chapter. All right, it starts out, and it came to pass after these things. What things? Well, that Jacob and 66 people total had come down from Canaan, where that there was the famine was very sore. They'd come down and settled into the land of Goshen, which was the prime area, the very north of Egypt, where that the Nile River emptied out into the Mediterranean Sea. And we learn here Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So that's interesting, because that's the age whenever basically Joseph was taken captive, and he lived in Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147. You remember he stood before Pharaoh when he was 130, and the time was gathered that he must die. And this is where we went last week, or 2 weeks ago, because we had singing last week. And the time drew near that Israel must die. He called his son Joseph, and you remember he said, "Take me out of Egypt and take me back to where his parents were, his family." And remember we talked about put your hand under my thigh. That was like a sign of sealing a deal. And he made him swear that he would take him back, and he bowed himself upon the bed's head. All right, 22 verses today. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, "Behold, thy father is sick." And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Of course, whenever you see the tribes of Israel listed, you usually see Manasseh and Ephraim. Joseph is usually not counted, but they each had a portion. So they're called half-tribes. People do today anyway. And one told Jacob and said, "Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee." And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. We mentioned about nursing homes in the previous, where the people will cry out, "It's so sad," about, "Can you take me home?" But people who are still in their right mind, I know as we get older, if you have a child that you haven't seen in a while, it makes you feel good for them to come home. And he was 147. He was sick, but when he heard that Joseph was coming to see him, he strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. I can picture, how someone just sort of lifts their spirit. I know Kathy goes to see Enola, and even at, she'll be 104. Jerry asked me this morning, he saw the newspaper, he said, is she still living? I said, she was last week. That's all I know because Kathy had told me. Jerry chuckled. I said, but she'll be 104 in October. I know Enola has some times relating, but does she even at this stage of life still perk up whenever you come see her a little bit? It makes a difference. Older people love for younger people to come see them, to bring your children, grandchildren to them. It just lifts them up. So he was sick. He was 147. I don't know how I'll feel at that age, but he was sick. I'll probably be gone. I'm sure, no doubt. And so he strengthened himself and sat up on the bed. So he was weak enough that he was laying in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, so Joseph is here with him. Jacob, of course, is Israel. Joseph is his son, who is ruling Egypt. God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. I want to look up the word Luz and some of it, because sometimes I like to look up place names of what they mean. The word Luz means almond tree. Just simply that. I gather they must have been there. And of course, Canaan we hear all the time. That means lowland. And so Luz in the land of Canaan is probably a low area here, and it was to the surrounding areas, and it's a place of almond trees, and blessed me. And said to me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make thee a multitude of people, and will give thee this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. Now, of course, the nation of Israel wasn't meant to be an earthly kingdom forever. It was until the time of Christ, and we're like spiritual Israel today. But this promise had been given to Jacob's grandfather, who was Abraham, and that his people would be as the stars of the sky and as the sand of the sea. I've read, it's interesting that even scientists comment that the number of stars and grains of sand on Earth are approximately equal. I mean, it's not going to be exact. Sands of Earth, sand grains. Let's see how on number versus stars. And it says there's more stars in the observable universe, but still we're talking numbers in the neighborhood. 7.5 to 10 to the 18th grains of sand, 10 to the 22nd power of stars. And that's still, as far as a human is concerned, it's just innumerable. And he's going to make his people like this. I'll reread the verse because I got off a little bit. And said to me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy two sons, this is Jacob talking to Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, which was born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came into thee in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. So we know a little bit about how, and there's something a little interesting in the chapter. Ephraim and Manasseh, and so he's already been in Egypt. How long? He came when he's 130. He's 147 now, so how long is it? He's been there 17 years. They were born before he came, so they're at least 17 years old. Probably 17 to 20. Certainly young adults. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. They're going to get full inheritance, is what he's saying. That's not uncommon for grandparents to give maybe a full inheritance to a favored grandchild, or maybe if they just have one grandchild. And thy issue which thou begettest after them shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren and their inheritance. It says anybody born after them will be yours. They'll descend from you, but I'm going to have Manasseh and Ephraim as my descendants. I'm going to look up their name real quick here. We'll see which one's the firstborn. Ephraim means a double ash heap. I shall be doubly fruitful. And that's the second son. And Manasseh is the first son, causing to forget. He's the eldest son. And so just remember, Manasseh actually was born first here. And we'll see in a moment. And thy issue which you beget after them shall be mine, shall be called after the name of their brethren and their inheritance. And as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan in the way, while yet there was but a little way to come unto Ephraim. And I buried her in the land of Ephrath, the same as Bethlehem. So she died before they got home or where they were going. It was just a little way, and Rachel died. Of course, that was his favorite wife of the two he had. And they buried her at Bethlehem. And so that's fitting. That's where Jesus is going to be born. And Israel beheld Joseph's son and said, who are these? Well, he knew who they were. But sometimes if you see, say, a grandchild or a child of someone that you haven't seen for a long time, you might just look at them and say, now, who is this? And you know who they are because they've grown up so much. It seems like he hadn't seen them in a while, and he's just really commenting. Who are these? And Joseph said to his father, these are my two sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. So he asked to see the two sons. Now, the eyes of Israel were dim for age. I think it's important because he couldn't see them too good. And he said, who are these? Maybe he hadn't seen them in quite a while. Children grow up quick. They were at least 17 years old, probably a little older because they were born before he came. Now, the eyes of Israel were dim for age so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God has showed me also thy seed. He said, I never thought I'd see you again, but I'm seeing your children. And Joseph, this is what's a little different, but you can see here. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees. The New King James says beside his knees. They must have been standing beside him. I can't picture two nearly 20-year-old boys between his knees, like a toddler might be. But they were there at his knees with him. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. It seems to be that Joseph bowed like to his father, and Joseph took them both. Now this is important. Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand. So they're facing each other. Ephraim is on the right of Joseph toward Israel, or Jacob's left hand. Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. So he gives them, both children are going to receive a blessing. So the one on the right would probably have been the one to receive the blessing, but he switches his hands. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh. I don't want to make light, but sometimes maybe children of elderly parents, they might can get a little put out with them, like, Father, you're not thinking clearly. Or, you've lost your mind a little bit. And please don't think I'm making light, but these were humans just like we were. Here's two boys, probably 17 to 20. They go toward Jacob. He grabs them, kisses them. I can see a little bit of, pulling back or just, a little bit of being put out, Maybe not. I'm just saying they were humans the way we were. And so, but perhaps not with the society and the things that are being done. Have you ever, maybe kiss a young child and they just sort of back up and pull away a little bit or something? Maybe uncomfortable if they didn't know you well. And so, I almost feel like he didn't get up to Goshen to see them very often. But I'm just thinking none of that's in the Bible. But this is. So, he switched hands. He took his right hand, laid it upon Ephraim, who was the younger, his left hand upon Manasseh, guiding his hands wittingly. He knew what he was doing, for Manasseh was the firstborn. So he switched his hands like of his blessings. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before... Now, Joseph's going to be put out with him doing this. And he blessed Joseph, and that's not me guessing here. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. They actually displeased Joseph. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. He was not happy at this. He actually lifted his father's hand to move it to the other child's head, to give him the first blessing. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And I guess he thought his father was mixed up or whatever. He couldn't see. He was nearly 150 years old. He was 147. And he said, No, do this. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He shall also become a people, and he shall also be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Now, whenever we get to the blessings, and like before we end the book, of all the children, no doubt the Lord gave him knowledge of what he was blessing them with, of how it was going to turn out with them, and blessings that would come to pass. And he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall Israel bless thee, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. So he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So for whatever reason, he'd been moved, and no doubt by the Lord, to make Ephraim as the firstborn. And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. So it's because of the two children. I've given you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. Of course, the Amorites are often throughout the Bible. And so next week, we'll look at, he's going to give blessings to all of his children. He starts out with Reuben, and he mentions some things here. I wonder if they even knew that he knew. Because Reuben, when he's talking to him on his deathbed, he said, You went up to my couch. They had defiled. You remember what Reuben had done. He had committed adultery with one of his father's concubines. I'm trying to think. Exactly how that's worded here. We'll look at it a little bit later, but or is they even mentioned? But the things that they had done here. Yeah, no, it is. I thought Genesis 35:22. Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. He actually committed adultery with his father's wife, and Israel heard it. He doesn't seem to address it then, but it does come back now. If he'd never heard this before, I imagine Reuben was pretty shocked. And when his father mentions here, decades later, you went up to my bed and defiled it. And then he mentioned Simeon and Levi. We'll talk about this next week. Their instruments of cruelty. Remember what they did. They killed an entire city because of committing fornication with Dinah. And I tell you, it was not a perfect family, that's for sure. And so next week we will go through Genesis 49, and then 50 will be, of course, the end of the chapter. Let me see how many verses are in chapter 49 and 50 each. 49 is 33 verses. We'll do that in 1 week. Genesis 50 is 26 verses. Okay, okay, we had Gene listening. I'd missed these. Taylor's listening, Gene's listening, and Chris Bush is listening. Okay, I hope y'all find this an interesting study. You realize how imperfect their family was, but they are the people of God, and they can still do right. And I think it gives us hope for imperfections in our family as well and within ourselves. Well, we'll stop there and pick up next week, of course, with Genesis 49. Okay, I know Chris, Nicole, and Rachel needs the Lord's Supper. Does anyone else? Larry, would you do that, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day and its many blessings. We're thankful, Father, for this opportunity to come to you in prayer. And we're thankful, Father, for the bread, which is your body that was nailed to the cross for the sins of the world. pray, Father, that you would be with those who take a visit, they would do so in a manner that is pleasing to you. So, in Christ's name. You have through the vine. Like manner, Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this cup, the fruit of the vine, which is the blood that you freely gave upon the cross for the sin of the world. Pray, Father, that you be with them, that they would take a visit in a manner that is pleasing to you. Pray, in Christ's name.
Turn, if you will, to number 851. It's good to have each one here. Of course, the invitation's always open. If anyone needs to obey the Lord in baptism or whatever spiritual needs you might have. Do appreciate each one coming. Keep those in prayer on our sick list. Of course, Alice with different issues and health problems that she has. Sandy did tell me that Carol Riffle, you think they think that spot they thought was cancer was like radiation burn.
Yeah, that's right. Carol has to say that. I do know she's back at work.
Okay, well, good.
And it appears to be doing well.
Well, okay, well, that's good news. Of course, remember our first responders. I know Chris is head of the rescue, not department, what do they call it? Squad, rescue squad. And of course, as I mentioned, the preacher at Center, who's also an elder, he passed away rather suddenly. It was cancer, but I learned a lot this morning from Beverly that they found a lump on his neck, and thyroid cancer is on his spine, maybe part of his heart or arteries, and they had to take out vocal cords. And they put him in hospice care, and he died the next day. So he didn't last long at all. He was a little over a year younger than me. So keep them in prayer. Anything else that needs to be announced? All right, hope that everyone can tune in tonight at 6 o'clock for our lesson online only. Number 851, let us stand. Sing one verse. We'll ask Chris to dismiss us. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home of God's celestial shore. Oh, fly away. Ah, fly away, oh Gloria. Fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by. Fly away.
God, thank you for allowing us together here today to worship you and study your word. Please help us to always keep you in the forefront of our minds, God. Keep you close to us. Help us to rely upon it in this passage whenever we need guidance, God. Help us to always keep you in the forefront of our minds, God. Help us to spread your word each and every day, God. To be a shining example of what a Christian should be, God. To hopefully draw others unto you, Lord. Please, Lord, be with us each influences and influences of the world, Lord. Please, Lord, be with members of the church who are sick, those who are away, those who are traveling, be with them and to guide them back into us, God. Help us not to make the save, my God. Most of all, your Son, Jesus, is died across for our sins. In Jesus' name, Holy Spirit.
Started school. 13, that's Wednesday.